Penguin Random House Audio presents A Certain Idea of America, Selected Writings by Peggy Noonan, read for you by Hilary Huber, with a foreword read by the author.
Foreword. This is not a book about the day-to-day of our national political life. It's simply about loving America and enjoying thinking aloud about it. The columns gathered here are varied in terms of subject matter. They're about the things that endure and things that deserve to be encouraged. A number of them are about spectacular human beings. As my editor and I read through the past few years of Wall Street Journal columns, if I said I really enjoyed writing that, or she said I loved this, or I said this was important to me, it was in, and if not, out. We chose about 80 from more than 400, and we found ourselves more attracted to themes of history and its pleasures. The book is divided into 7 parts. Let Us Now Praise Famous Men is mostly about great figures and artists of the 20th century, from Billy Graham to Oscar Hammerstein, from Queen Elizabeth II to Senator Margaret Chase Smith of the state of Maine, and from Tom Wolfe to Bob Dylan, with some side trips to the 19th century and the generals of the American Civil War. Looking back on a career of now 50 years, I see that from the beginning what I have loved most, what has most moved me, is writing honest praise. I Don't Mind Being Stern, on the other hand, is about having fun as a public writer, taking as big a stick as you can to people and things you are certain deserve it. The U.S. Senate changing its dress code to accommodate a senator who enjoys dressing like a child? Get the stick. Vengeful Prince Harry? Ditto. We were certain a recent Broadway production of Cabaret deserved our stern attention in a piece whose last line is its summation: life isn't merde. We castigate men who aren't gentlemen and admonish parents who, as their personal vanity project, wind kids up to become mindless status robots. Also receiving some fire are woke academics who speak garbage thoughts with garbage words. I am sorry to use the word woke, which is boring and sounds merely sarcastic, but the thing is that when you say it, everyone pretty much knows what you mean. I believe we were the first to compare contemporary social justice warriors with the practitioners of the struggle sessions of the Chinese Cultural Revolution, and we enjoyed pointing out that the leaders of the French Revolution were, largely, sociopaths. And there's a piece written in the hours after January 6, 2021. In Try a Little Tenderness, we turn to love, which we posit as a very good thing. We call for artists to enter politics. We meditate after the fire that swept the Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris on the enduring presence and power of religious faith. We unabashedly love, we swoon over and wish to marry Leo Tolstoy and War and Peace. We mourn for Uvalde, Texas. We talk about the endless drama of men and women and instruct America that more happens every day in the office than business. Also, we declare Taylor Swift an American phenomenon, and if you don't like it, you can just shake it off. It appears he didn't take my advice is only 2 columns long. The first, on Joe Biden, was so spectacularly wrong in its central prediction that it made us laugh. Yet looking back 5 years later, it seemed to me in its reasoning to be still oddly pertinent. The second, on Donald Trump on the eve of the 2016 election, seems to me to have some prescience as to his central problems as a historical figure, also in the writing of it I remember a feeling of poignance. On America is about the foibles, troubles, and triumphs of our country. It includes the story of my great-aunt Jane, and how, as an Irish immigrant, she came to love her new country. I'd say the general theme of this section is about keeping your poise under pressure. It includes recent college graduates, the Normandy invasion, and the spirited against-the-grain testimony of an old-fashioned American capitalist. Also included a portrait of the dynamics that produced a political sea change. That's called the protected versus the unprotected. The chapter called Watch Out contains columns about the worries that preoccupy my mind. They are the dark potentials of AI, skepticism as to the character and motives of its inventors, the possible use of nuclear weapons, and the ongoing dramas in Ukraine and the Mideast. We Can Handle It is about working our way as a nation through things that roil us, from the Me Too movement to the abortion wars, from the creation of a sane foreign policy to the low state of the American presidency. This collection draws its title from the famous first sentence of Charles de Gaulle's war memoirs, most happily translated as, "All my life I have had a certain idea of France." It struck me when I read it many years ago and stayed with me because all my life I have had a certain idea of America, and from the beginning it shaped my thinking and drove my work. So what is that idea? That she is good, that she has value, that from birth she was something new in the history of man, a step forward, an advancement. Its founders were engaged in the highest form of human achievement, stating assumptions and creating arrangements whereby life could be made more just. In the workings of its history, I saw something fabled. The genius cluster of the founders, for instance. How did it happen that those particular people came together at that particular moment with exactly the right, different but complementary gifts? Long ago I asked the historian David McCullough if he ever wondered about this, and he said yes, and the only explanation he could come up with was providence. And that is where my mind settles too. De Gaulle said his thoughts on France were driven as much by emotion as reason, and the same for me. A piece in here, dated July 3rd, 2019, speaks of both. I'm not really big on purple mountain majesties. I'd love America if it were a hole in the ground, though yes, it's beautiful. I don't love it only because it's an idea, as we all now say. That strikes me as a little bloodless. Baseball didn't come from an idea, it came from us. A long, cool game punctuated by moments of high excellence and utter heartbreak. A team sport in which each player operates on his own. The great movie about America's pastime isn't called Field of Ideas, it's called Field of Dreams. And the scene that makes every grown-up weep is when the dark-haired young catcher steps out of the cornfield and walks toward Kevin Costner, who suddenly realizes, that's my father. He asks if they can play catch, and they do, into the night. And the great question comes from the father, is this heaven? And the great answer, it's Iowa. Which gets me closer to my feelings on patriotism. We are a people that has experienced something epic together. We were given this brilliant, beautiful thing, this new arrangement, a political invention based on the astounding assumption that we are all equal and that where you start doesn't dictate where you'll wind up.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?